Armed conflict has been with us since the dawn of civilization. Archaeologists have unearthed evidence of armies as far back as 10,000 BC. Military history has always existed on a grand scale, with legendary battles fought on land, sea, and air. From ancient daggers to modern medals of honor, in expert hands, these relics reveal the stories of those who are no longer here to speak for themselves. Join us as we unlock the secrets of Militaria. Today on Militaria, we look at a uniform that highlights its members' Scottish roots, a collection of letters composed by a sailor who was lost at sea, and a designation given to a former Canadian Minister of Defence. Kevin looks at the medals and uniform accoutrement of a soldier in the Nova Scotia Highlanders.
The ones that never came home, never had a chance to have a full, long life. Some of the ones that did come home have come home broken in body and in spirit.
Jennifer explores a collection of letters written by midshipman Victor Hathaway, who perished with the crew of HMS Good Hope.
Put yourself in their position, imagine the sacrifice, but also the excitement of the time.
Kevin looks at Sir Frederick Borden's military surgeon designation. It was found in his home.
Really, they talk about his transformation of the Canadian military for, making life better for those serving.
My name is Ian Bowen, and I brought in medals, some uniform accoutrements, pictures, and documents of my great-uncle Douglas's service during the First World War. They were gifted to me through Uncle Douglas after he passed on.
In August 1914, as tensions rose and Europe teetered on the brink of war, the first of over 600,000 Canadians and Newfoundlanders assembled to join the fight. Of those men and women, 424,000 would travel overseas throughout the First World War to offer multifaceted support to the Allies as Canada's expeditionary force. These volunteers came from all corners of the country, with over 35,000 hailing from Nova Scotia. Though faced with unimaginable perils throughout their service, the Canadian troops proved critically impactful, claiming victory on some of history's most famed battlefields, including Somme, Passchendaele, and Vimy Ridge. In 1919, when Nova Scotians began to arrive back home, many did so with medals, honours and accolades awarded by the very countries they had liberated.
We're here with Ian Bowen. I'd like to welcome you to Militaria. Ian, you've brought in some remarkable family artifacts. I was wondering if you could tell us about them.
These are the medals and uniform accoutrements of my great-uncle, Douglas Wiswell. His medals include the British War Medal and the Victory Medal, and the Belgian Order of Leopold in the grade of Chevalier. We also have his Sporn and Ski and Do. There's 4 Highland battalions raised in Nova Scotia, the 85th, the 185th, 193rd, and the 219th. Uncle Douglas originally enrolled in the 185th, and of course when they got to England in 1916, 1917, because of the manpower requirements from casualties required at the front, a lot of battalions that did reach England from Canada were broken up and sent forward as replacements to other battalions. So that's how we ended up in the 85th Battalion.
The Nova Scotia Highland Brigade, as you know, has its beginnings with the raising of the 85th Battalion in 1915. So with that, the success and the amount of troops or people had to be turned away in raising the 85th, it gave cause to see that they might actually raise a full brigade of Highland infantry here. So this is the brainchild, as you probably know, of Ralph Stanfield, who is one of the founding members of the Stanfield Underwear, or men's undergarments, and also supplied an enormous amount of that to the Army overseas. So Ralph does go overseas with the brigade, and again, because of his age, has to come home because of illness. And again, your grandfather's story, or your great-uncle's story, I'm sorry, is again, as you're saying, it's very sort of indicative of the situation for Canadian replacements for active units at the front. This again, you have the whole brigade eventually will work its way into, in some cases, the 85th Battalion. In the course of that, especially at Passchendaele, outside the village of Zonnebeek, the 85th Battalion loses half its strength in a 24-hour period.
The picture that is below his medals is a souvenir picture postcard done up at the time when the battalion returned to Nova Scotia. Uncle Douglas is carrying the King's color in that picture as part of the color party.
You're well versed in this, of course, being a collector and a descendant. But for folks at home that might not know it, the photograph here, as you mentioned, is the day that the 85th have arrived back to Halifax. This is, I think, June 7th, 1919. And again, this is the parade of the 85th Battalion on the Halifax Commons, where they'll basically begin the process of returning to civilian life. Your great uncle is obviously very highly and well regarded by his comrades, and that he is in the color party holding one of the colors. So always a great honor as a representative of an officer and a serving member of the battalion to be part of that. Colors are usually, especially for the infantry, two flags. One is known as the battalion colors, that has the battalion crest and motto on it, and the other one is always known as the King's or the Queen's colors. So the colors were always in the center of any battalion line. It's considered from the time they started doing, a great honor to be a member of the color party. Historically, when colors were carried in linear combat, like in the 17th, 18th, 19th century, if you're a member of the color party, you also make a heck of a target. Everybody wants to zoom in on those colors. And anybody that you're squaring off with will say, when they can grab your colors or take your colors, that is always like an enormous loss to anyone and a great victory for anyone who actually takes them. Well, Ian, I'd like to thank you on behalf of Militaria for coming in today and sharing your family's story and artifacts with us here on the program and at home. These will no doubt return to a place of honor in your front room when we're done here today.
Yes, well, thank you very much for having me. Continue to display them proudly at my home and anytime I go out for collector shows there. And eventually they'll be passed on to members of my family with as much information as I've been able to gather as possible so that the story and the knowledge doesn't die.
Well, that's great. Every man his own historian. Yeah.
Rightly so, people feel that war is not a good thing. And I think here in Canada, we can be proud of the fact that we're not an aggressive nation and that we go out throwing our weight around trying to take stuff. Although war is unpleasant, unfortunately, sometimes war does have to happen. For the people from this country, from Canada, who have gone in service of these ideals in the past, should be remembered for what they've given up. The ones that never came home, never had a chance to have a full, long life. Some of the ones that did come home have come home broken in body and in spirit. And we should do our best to honor them, respect them, keep their stories as a reminder of what is required of us in the future.
Coming up on Militaria.
Victor Hathaway was not only the first graduate from the Royal Naval College in Canada, but he was also one of the first 4 Canadians to die during the First World War.
My name is Lisa McNiven, and I'm an archivist at the Naval Museum of Halifax. And I've brought in a collection of letters from Midshipman Victor Hathaway, who is serving aboard the Good Hope.
Built for the British Royal Navy in the early 1900s, the HMS Good Hope was recommissioned ahead of the First World War, during which it served as the flagship of Rear Admiral Sir Christopher Craddock. The mission of Craddock's fleet, which included 2 armoured cruisers, a modern light cruiser, and an armed merchantman, was to scour waters for enemy raiders, covering the coast of South America before moving to the Strait of Magellan, hoping to cut off the German East Asia Squadron before its move into the Atlantic. On November 1st, 1914, Craddock and his men found what they were looking for, and engaged. Tragically outnumbered and outgunned by the Germans, 2 of the 4 vessels, including the HMS Good Hope, perished with all hands. The Battle of Coronel marked Britain's first naval defeat in over a century.
Welcome back to Militaria. What have you brought us today?
I've brought a lovely collection of letters written by Victor Hathaway. At the time a young graduate of the Royal Naval College of Canada, ready for a career in the Royal Canadian Navy, suddenly cut short by the disaster of the Good Hope.
How did these letters become a part of the collection at the museum?
It was a generous donation by a gentleman called Mr. John Rex. In 2020, he donated a collection of letters that Mr. Hathaway had written during his time in the Royal Canadian Naval College and also while he was serving on the Good Hope.
Victor Hathaway was not only the first graduate, one of the first graduates from the Royal Naval College in Canada, but he was also one of the first 4 Canadians to die during the First World War. And when he lost his life, he was serving on a ship called HMS Good Hope.
What was the Good Hope's mission and where were they sent to?
At the beginning of the war, HMS Good Hope, its primary mission was to go down south off the coast of Chile to hunt down a squadron of German ships that were attacking British merchant ships. HMS Good Hope rolled into Halifax. While she was there, the captain of the ship quickly identified he was short 4 midshipmen, and he quickly needed to fill those positions. Hathaway, Kane, Palmer, and Silver, the 4 men from the Royal Canadian Navy, joined the crew of HMS Good Hope and headed down south. While they were down south, hunting down the German squadron run by Admiral Maxwell von Spee, it took weeks to find them. The German squadron was very stealthy, and they would attack and disappear and come back. And so after a couple of weeks, by luck or not, however you like to see it, HMS Good Hope came across the German squadron and they were significantly outnumbered. And unfortunately, when the Battle of Cornell happened off of the coast of Chile, the Good Hope went down fast and very quickly, and it was a very significant and sad British loss. After the Battle of Cornell, the British knew that the Good Hope was needing support. In fact, they had sent ships to support the Good Hope in the hunt for this German squadron off the coast of Chile, but unfortunately, that help arrived a little bit late. But once those British ships were down off the coast of Chile, they hunt down the rest of that squadron that survived the Battle of Cornell and actually ended up catching up with the ships and sinking them. And so the British, even though they had a huge loss, they were able to kind of hunt down the remainder of those ships and to have a win for the British. Up until this point, the Royal Navy had gone undefeated on the ocean. They were the king of the ocean. And so when the Royal Navy lost the Battle of Cornell that the Good Hope was involved in, it was a turning point in any sailor's perspective of serving in either the Royal Canadian Navy or even the Royal Navy, that all of a sudden you weren't safe and that you were at war. At the beginning of the First World War, the Royal Navy was a significant fleet. For the past 100 years, the Royal Navy had gone kind of undefeated. They were a major sea power, very significant ships, well-trained crew. And so when the Royal Canadian Navy was stood up in 1910, before the First World War, it was the Royal Navy that trained our men and our officers and helped set up our institution to have a Navy. At the beginning of the First World War, I think it was a general assumption that the Royal Navy was generally safe. They were dominating, sea power-wise. So when the Battle of Cornell happened, it was a huge shock. I mean, the British hadn't lost in such a long time when it came to a naval battle. It really shook everybody up that actually happened.
The Battle of Cornell was obviously a devastation to the British and the Royal Canadian Navy. Can you talk about the loss and the sacrifice?
Yes, well, a ship like the Good Hope had a complement of 900 individuals. And so in one battle, that was 900 sailors and officers lost. And also the Good Hope was out patrolling with HMS Monmouth, and she had an equal complement. And so overall in the Battle of Cornell, the British loss was roughly around 1,600 sailors and officers lost.
Devastating.
Lisa, what can you tell us about Victor Hathaway?
Victor Hathaway was well-liked. He was popular among his class. And the note home that he writes to his mother refers to Midshipman Palmer, one of his classmates, that he was enjoying his company on the deck of the Good Hope the night before the ship goes down.
It is really interesting because in this letter as well, that's why he first mentions that he has night watch with Midshipman Palmer. And what's really interesting as well is that when the Good Hope was in Halifax and they were short midshipmen, they were short 4 midshipmen. And so the captain of the Good Hope requested 2 of the midshipmen, and So Palmer and Hathaway actually won a lottery to go on the Good Hope. And so when they won that lottery to be picked as midshipmen for the Good Hope, they really thought it was the best luck in the world, because serving on a major ship of war during a time of war was, it would be wonderful for their career. Exactly.
Yeah.
Him and Palmer, they would have been very close. They served together and they did night watch together. And so I always like to think that it was my hope that when that final day came, at least they were together.
A bond.
Yeah. Lisa, thank you for bringing in these letters from Victor Hathaway and a photo of him as well. I will enjoy getting to share these with our visitors to the Naval Museum of Halifax and to continue to learn from these letters.
Oh, you're more than welcome, Jennifer. And I hope people come in and view this beautiful collection. I find this collection really interesting, and I use it in the scope of trying to make a connection when we do tours at the Naval Museum of Halifax. We do tours with high school students along with other ages and grades, but I find this is a relevant connection to children or teenagers of that age. These were naval cadets, 16, 17, 18. So I tell my students during the tour, put yourself in their position, imagine the sacrifice, but also the excitement of the time of you're about to join a much bigger world. How exciting would this career be for you? So I find that resonates with our older students, and understanding that someone of their age was about to take on a huge undertaking.
Coming up on Militaria.
He was at one time an enormously famous Canadian. The Canadian Forces base at Borden, Ontario is named after him. Borden, Saskatchewan.
So my name is Alistair Padmas. I brought in a military designation of Frederick Borden during his time as the Minister of Militia. It's American's Surgeon General's honorary designation.
In 1874, 5 years after arming himself with a Harvard medical degree and enlisting as an assistant surgeon with the 68th Infantry Battalion, Nova Scotia's Frederick William Borden entered politics. Already an established physician and businessman, Borden ascended to Parliament, powered by an impeccable resume and close relationship with Wilfrid Laurier, who in 1896 appointed him as Canada's Minister of Militia and Defence. In his new role, he pioneered decisions to finance staff and resources related to transportation, logistics, and medical services, bringing autonomy to the country's then British-dependent militia, and paving the way for its future expeditionary forces. Throughout his lifetime and beyond, Borden received multiple honours for his work and has become known to history as the founding father of Canada's modernised military.
I'd like to welcome Alistair Padmas here to Militaria. Alistair, you've brought in a very interesting artifact, a document that once belonged to Sir Frederick Borden. So I was wondering if you could tell us how you obtained this and any of the backstory you might know about it at this point.
Okay. Yeah, great to be here. This certificate was within my house that I purchased a few years ago, and it's the Sir Frederick Borden residence in Canning, Nova Scotia.
Now, with the passage of time, you're quite well acquainted with Sir Frederick, but a lot of people listening and watching the show have probably forgot about him. He was at one time an enormously famous Canadian. The Canadian Forces base in Borden, Ontario is named after him. Borden, Saskatchewan. And for, again, people watching at home, he's born in Cornwallis, Nova Scotia. You live in his home in Canning that he built when he became involved in politics. Frederick Borden, again, will be the Minister of Militia and Defence in the administration of Sir Wilfrid Laurier. Wilfrid Laurier will entrust him with the enormous job of reorganizing and improving and bringing up to date the Canadian militia units prior to the First World War. So this certificate that you have is very interesting in that in 1899, okay, this would be 3 years after he is the Minister of Defense, and he has begun to gather information with the reforms that need to be made, talking to people in other countries about like how other militia units are run, say, especially in Switzerland. So he's looking for an existing template that he might be able to borrow from to create a new and modern militia force. But you made an interesting point about how some of your friends who are serving officers, maybe you could share us those comments you made about like their opinion of Borden.
Yeah, mostly positive, and congratulations to me and my family for living in his house is what I get from my buddies. And really, they talk about his transformation of the Canadian military for, making life better for those serving in those difficult, theaters that they may be at.
Now, Alistair, you live in Frederick Borden's home now. How did you find this? Was it up in an attic or like on a top shelf somewhere?
It was on a shelf in the office that Borden would have practiced out of. The house is an interesting residence that my family and I moved to a few years ago. And in it, there were a number of historical documents and things related to the house and then about Borden's life.
This document has a lot of interesting facets to it, but it's a certificate from the Association of Military Doctors and Surgeons that are in the U.S. Army. This document essentially makes Frederick Borden an honorary member of the U.S. Army Medical Corps. And as it says, he's to be given all sort of courtesies and assistance whenever possible. Borden is a physician. He'd taken his military training at Harvard, graduated in 1869 with a degree from Harvard Medical School. Then he comes back to Nova Scotia, becomes quite active in the local militia. He's connected to as an assistant surgeon with the 68th Kings County Militia Battalion. After that goes into, as a lot of people would, goes into business, becomes quite successful, and a one-time physician is now quite active in military affairs and in commercial interests as well. Now in 1899, while Frederick Borden is in the process of creating a modern militia, the United States has just finished its conflict in the Spanish-American War, Cuba, and also in the Philippines. Now, the American Army will suffer many casualties from yellow fever, malaria, etc. The Canadian Army, the Canadian contingent that had gone over to the Second Boer War under his direction, had also suffered from these tropical diseases. So it's very interesting to see that the Minister of Defense for Canada is in conversation on a regular point with the American Medical Corps, to the point that they make him like a brother surgeon, if you would. He's now brought into the sort of medical community of American sort of caregivers. So it's very interesting to see that this document, again, shows this connection between, prior to the First World War, the Canadian Minister of Defense dealing with members of the American military establishment. This again kind of shows the diminishing sort of tension that had been between Great Britain, Canada, and the United States well into the 1770s, 1780s. We see government ministers dealing directly with their peers across the border in the U.S. Army. Well, Alistair, it's really good of you to come in and bring this and share it with the program and folks at home. I was wondering what your current plans are for the house. Are you going to try to keep it as much as it was when he was there? Or?
Yeah, we're just sort of open to share it and show it with people.
That's brilliant, yeah. Because again, a forgotten member of Canadian politics in some ways, but again, an enormous legacy that he left to the country, especially on the eve of the apocalypse, so to speak. Yeah.
Right.
So it's great that you brought this in. It was quite exciting.
Well, good to be here.
Thanks for coming, Alistair.